This black girl slipped a drawing on a note in a policeman's pocket. When the cop saw it, he immediately called for backup. To an outsider, everyday life in the small town seemed normal, but Emma's world was anything but normal. She had been suffering for too long at the hands of her stepmother, and she knew she had to speak up even though she was afraid to say anything that day. Emma walked up to the donut shop where she always saw the policeman in patrol. She had been watching this particular officer for weeks, and he looked kind and caring. She wanted to approach him and tell him what she had been going through, but she had always felt scared. But today, she had made up her mind. She knew what she had to do, feeling a mix of fear and hope. Emma carefully folded the paper she had been holding and crossed the road. She then walked towards the policeman and waited for him to get distracted. Then, with a trembling hand, she slipped the folded note into his pocket. The note contained some of her drawings. It was the girl's way of saying, "Please see what I can say." After dropping the note, she then turned to walk away, but the black girl didn't get far before she heard a whistle. As she turned back, she could see that the policeman had seen the note in his pocket. He found it so fast she thought Emma wanted to run off, but she couldn't. The policeman waited for her to stop and began to walk towards her with a look of concern on his face. The policeman, a kind soul with a weathered face, had immediately noticed the paper in his pocket. He took it out and unfolded it, and what he saw on the note shocked him to his very core. As his eyes scanned the drawing, a deep frown edged across his forehead. The drawing was a sad and troubling one. It showed a woman doing something horrible to a little girl, and beside them were other little sketches. The broken heart, the small figure, the looming clouds. It all spoke to him without words. The little girl's silent plea echoed through the lines on the paper. For a moment, the world around him blurred as he absorbed the emotions captured in the drawing. He felt a surge of empathy and understanding of the pain someone was trying so hard to hide. In that instant, the police, without knowing all the details, sensed the urgency in the black girl's cry for help. So immediately the policeman decided to act. He went over to the scared little girl and asked her for her name and address. With this information, he quickly called for backup, realizing that there was more to the case than met the eye. Little did he know that this would set off a chain of events, revealing the full of the hidden torment that Emma had been enduring silently. 2 years earlier, Emma's world was shattered when her mom passed away. The warmth and comfort that once filled their home disappeared, leaving behind an emptiness that seemed impossible to fill. Her father, in an attempt to move forward, remarried a woman named Karen. Karen was a cold woman. As soon as she stepped foot into their home, it seemed as if a wind blew through the house, extinguishing any flicker of warmth. Emma felt Karen's dislike for her from the beginning. She noticed the distant gaze, the icy tone, and the disdain that seemed to grow with each passing day. The new chapter in Emma's life became a harsh one, with Karen causing every pain and every fear. As the months passed, the atmosphere in their home grew more oppressive. Karen's disdain for Emma was evident in every hurtful word, in every imposed rule. No matter what Emma did, Karen would always find fault in them. Then she would berate the poor little girl and call her cruel names. Strict rules became a daily ordeal. Any little mistake from Emma was first met with harsh, biting words, then with pulling of the ears. This was all very new to Emma, as she had never been hit in her life. Emma, desperate to make it stop, tried to tell her father about Karen's harsh treatment, but her father did not understand her. He felt she just missed her mother and was saying anything at all for him to make Karen leave. So her words fell in deaf ears. So Emma decided to stand her ground. She wouldn't let Karen push her around. But that was when Karen showed Emma how cruel she could be. She decided to tighten her grip on the poor girl. Firstly, Karen declared that meals were privilege, not a right, and Emma had to earn them. If chores weren't done to Karen's satisfaction, she would not get any meals from then on. Karen's cruelty took various forms. Apart from starving her, confinement to her room became a common punishment. Beatings became normal. But Karen was careful not to hit her anywhere that could leave physical scars. One day, as Karen's insults became especially hurtful, Emma grabbed her sketchbook and quickly drew what was happening. Tears filled her eyes as her pencil moved across the page. She had to find a way to process what she was going through. Her sketchbook was her secret friend, a place where she poured out her feelings when no one else would listen. Emma drew scenes of verbal attack arrows of harsh words aimed at her fragile heart. Each word etched on the paper held the sting of rejection. Words like worthless and unloved. Karen used these words to make Emma believe she was a burden, a mistake in their family story. As Emma's attempts to expose Karen's cruelty intensified, so did the punishments faced with the silence that met her cries for help. Emma turned to her sketchbook more fervently. Art became her refuge, a way to scream out to pain that lingered within the walls of her home. One evening, when it was getting dark outside, Karen took the opportunity to display her cruelty. Emma, exhausted from a day of trying to meet Karen's ever-changing expectations, found herself on the receiving end of her stepmother's wrath. Emma's dad, unaware of the storm brewing in his own home, was occupied with work in his study. Karen, seizing the opportunity, cornered Emma in the kitchen. The air was thick with tension as Karen's cold eyes bore into Emma's, sending a chill down her spine. Without warning, Karen's hand shot out, delivering your forceful slap across Emma's face. The sound echoed through the silent kitchen, leaving a painful mark on Emma's cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she dared not to make a sound. Karen's cruelty extended beyond the physical pain. It was a calculated assault on Emma's spirit. She taunted Emma, mocking her for being weak and incapable. The emotional wounds got deeper than the physical ones, leaving scars that lingered long after the sting of the slap had faded. All these things happened even when Emma's dad was right in the house. But whenever she was in his presence, Karen acted like everything was normal. She put on a fake smile, acting like a caring stepmom and wife. So when Emma's dad looked at Karen, all she saw was a loving wife. Emma's dad was busy with work and he didn't see the hidden side of Karen. The abuse was like a secret, kept out of sight whenever Emma's dad was nearby. This incident was just one part of a bigger problem. Karen was good at hiding the mean stuff she did, but Emma couldn't take it anymore. It seemed their father was blind to her suffering, so she had to take matters into her own hands. That was why Emma handed the drawings on the notes to the policeman, which marked a turning point in her life. The image on the paper painted a vivid picture of the pain she couldn't put into words, shocked by what he saw. The policeman didn't waste any time. He called for backup, and soon, the police and child services had arrived at Emma's home. But when the police confronted Karen with Emma's drawings as evidence, she erupted in fury. She denied everything so well that everyone seemed to want to believe her. According to Karen, Emma was a troubled liar scheming to turn her father against her, but trained police officers were not buying it. After seeing more of Emma's drawings, they wanted to take the case seriously. The police officers told Karen they wanted to take a closer look at the drawings, but instead, they installed a hidden camera in Emma's room. Their hope was to capture the truth behind closed doors. Night after night, they monitored the footage remotely, searching for the evidence that would expose the hidden cruelty Emma had suffered for so long. However, after 3 weeks of surveillance, the police found nothing. Frustration crept in as they questioned whether they had misunderstood Emma's drawings. The images that spoke volumes seemed to lose their voice in the silent footage. The storm inside Emma's home appeared calm on the surface, leaving the police bewildered and uncertain. Little did they know, Karen had temporarily laid low after the police visit. The very next day after the police visit, Karen decided to take Emma out for a drive. As they drove along, Karen's false smile concealed as sinister intent. She pulled the car over in a quiet, secluded spot, far away from any prying eyes. Emma, unaware of the storm about to unfold, sat quietly beside her with a sudden burst of anger. Karen's hand lashed out, striking Emma across the face. The pain was immediate, and Emma recalled in shock. Karen's voice, usually cold and distant, now dripped with the venomous words. She berated Emma, unleashing a torrent of hurtful comments that stunk far more than the physical blow. She mocked Emma for bringing the cops to their door and for trying to disgrace the family. The isolation of the secluded spot mirrored Emma's internal anguish, trapped with nowhere to escape. The mistreatment hidden from the watchful eyes of the world continued in that quiet, lonely place. The pain had inflicted left no visible scars, but the emotional wounds ran deep. Little did they know the darkness that Karen had cunningly concealed outside the home would eventually be exposed, bringing an end to Emma's silent suffering. Yet for now, as the hidden camera failed to capture the truth, Emma continued the suffering silence. The cycle of abuse persisted, leaving her trapped in a nightmare that seemed to have no end. To pain Emma endured outside the home remained invisible, but Karen, determined to keep it hidden, built walls of silence around the innocent girl. Those walls might have seemed strong, like a fortress against the world, but they couldn't hold back the storm brewing within. This pain invisible to world was about to burst out, not with a bang, but in a way no one could have predicted. Even though other officers were losing interest in the case, a breakthrough was about to happen. The police officer who had originally been given the note by Emma became interested in the case after successfully arresting a mistreating foster parent. Officer Sullivan was worried that Emma had been right and they were missing something. It had haunted him for weeks, and knowing since that they overlooked something crucial. Sullivan revisited the security footage from Emma's home. On the third night of the surveillance, amidst the grainy pixels, a horrifying truth unfolded. The footage showed Carrie pulling Emma into the room by her ears, but she was not done because she was still shouting at the girl. In its impetuous rage, Karen shoved Emma with a force that sent her staggering. The girl's body crumpled, her head colliding with the sharp corner of the nightstand. The video froze in that horrific impact, and the silence in the room was heavy with shock and disbelief. The evidence, undeniable and stark, tore away any lingering doubts. Karen, with the eyes of a concerned animal, stood frozen, the weight of her actions dawning on her. Fear, cold and clammy, sneaked this way into her veins as she believed she had crossed the line between anger and oblivion. Panic set in, a storm clouding her judgment. In a desperate bid to erase the evidence, she reached for a heavy rug, contemplating a grim fate for Emma. But fate, it seems, had other plans. As Karen neared the unconscious girl, she discovered Emma was, to her surprise, still alive. The blow had only inflicted a severe head injury, leaving her lying motionless on the floor. Seizing the opportunity, her face contorted with a mix of menace and desperation. Karen threatened Emma. She warned that if Emma dared to speak up, her father would bear the brunt of the consequences. The sinister threat hung in the air. But little did Karen know that her actions had been caught on tape, providing the evidence needed to unravel the rebel flies. But the policeman's help, Emma's father was finally confronted with the stark reality of his new wife's mistreatment of his daughter. The emotional weight of Emma's heartbreaking drawing struck him like a force he couldn't ignore. Regretting guilt flooded his heart as he realized the depth of his failure to protect his own flesh and blood. Confronted with irrefutable proof, Emma's father faced a difficult decision. The revelation of Karen's true nature demanded justice. In a moment of clarity, he confronted Karen, stepping away the facade that had masked their cruelty for far too long. In that confrontation, he found the strength to send her away from their home for good. But justice didn't stop at mere expulsion. The police, fueled by the urgency to protect the innocent, didn't allow Karen to just walk away. They arrested her immediately, ensuring that her actions would have legal consequences. The handcuffs that bound her became a symbol of the accountability she could no longer escape. Finally, Emma was liberated from the chains of Karen's cruelty. The drawings, once seemingly futile, became the key that unlocked her silent torment. The police intervention, initially met with frustration and doubt, triumphs in the end. Emma's voice, stifled for too long, rang out loud and clear through the evidence captured on that hidden camera. The gratitude Emma felt was immeasurable. She knew her art had given her a voice when words had failed. The drawing, simple yet profound, became a beacon of hope that guided her out of the darkness. With Karen out of their lives, Emma found herself surrounded by newfound love and support from her father. The emotional climax of the story was not just about justice being served, but about the silence voice finding resonance. The storm that had raged within the walls of her home had finally cleared, leaving behind the sense of justice and the promise of a brighter future for Emma. What do you think about the story? What do you think should be done to help identify young children like Emma who are victims of terrible step-parents? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.